Well, first of all, this is a little bit awkward because my former boss and my new boss are on stage with me. And actually, we're not going to talk about pricing and rebates. This is my performance review that you've all come to witness today. So, hi guys, how are you? Good. Anyway, the first question to kind of get us, sorry, I should introduce. This is John Moss. John Moss is British. However, lived in Melbourne for a very, very long time before moving to Auckland, which was where Flint Fox was founded 35 years ago. James over here is the CTO of Flint Fox, and James has been at Flint Fox for 24 years, even though he only looks 21 himself. I mean, age defies this guy. It really, really does. And so, John, I am going to start with a question. We're just going to keep it really simple to start with. Okay. Let's talk about Flint Fox. What is Flint Fox? And can you put Flint Fox in context of the pricing value chain inside of organisations?
Okay. So Flint Fox is a pricing technology company, as Kath said, headquartered in New Zealand. And we have customer-facing staff in North America, Europe, and APAC. Customers, as you'd expect, 65% in the US, 25% in Europe, and 10% down here. The core value proposition is an integrated pricing and rebates and accruals platform, with the key differentiator being a hyper-speed pricing engine that we believe is the fastest on the planet. And that's something that James has built over a decade. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that later on. We've been very closely aligned with Microsoft for a large part of those 35 years. We're an Inner Circle member, which is the top 1% of partners globally, have been an Inner Circle member for about 7 or 8 years now, which provides us great access to Microsoft engineers and their business team. And the reason for that is one of our products is natively inside Dynamics 365. About a decade ago, James started building a pure SaaS version of our pricing product, which integrates to SAP. You can use that with Infor, Epicor, and other ERP systems. And the reason that customers choose Flint Fox is because their existing solution hasn't got either the breadth or the depth or the speed they need around pricing. So within the pricing value chain, which will explain where we sort of sit in terms of technology, because pricing technology can mean a lot of different things. So I think of the value chain as being strategy, price setting, price execution, price administration. So pricing strategy, what I mean by that is not is it cost plus or value based or match competitors. It means what is your pricing model? How do you try and extract the maximum willingness to pay from your customers? And that's around the model that you employ. And so if I take a software firm, for example, so you can sell your products as a suite. So all you can eat, single price, that's the suite. Or you can create a base platform and a series of modules that customers can select. Or you could, for example, have industry-based solutions. So if you're in pharmaceuticals, you buy this product. If you're in retail, you buy that product, et cetera, et cetera. Or you could blow it all up and say, here are our 16 individual features, pick and choose. And what you select should be the model that will, again, help you capture the most willingness to pay from your customers. Pricing strategy also includes your discounts and promotion strategy and your rebate strategy, because all three go together to get the eventual margin that you make on your products. The second phase is what I call price setting. So you've got your strategy, and there are plenty of firms that will help you build your strategy. Then it comes down to what price do you set. So you could have a simple cost plus. You could look at the competition and sell your product for the same price as the competition. But if your product is more durable, has a longer life, better features, how do you charge a premium for that? So you can do things like conjoint analysis to try and work out the willingness to pay and how you capture that. It's an area now where there's price optimization. So if you've got large data sets that are somehow different for your competitors, you can start to use optimization to try and work out the price. And more recently, well actually maybe not recently, but over a period of time, things like dynamic pricing have come in, long used by airlines and by e-commerce sites, and more recently by Oasis for their ticket sales. And so that's another way of setting your price. So those two components of the value chain are what I call the strategic elements. So the pricing model and then how you set your price and change that over time. No model and price is any good if you can't execute on that. And Andrew alluded to that just recently in the previous piece about the loss that companies make because they can't execute their price quickly enough. I work for a firm where we had to give our IT team 3 months notice to change the price of products because it was an SAP system they had to program, and it took them that long to get the price changes out. You can't do that nowadays. You have to have fast execution, and the FlintFox platform allows you to change centrally or regionally a price, and it goes into effect immediately wherever the price is being looked at. So execution is that third phase. Administration is the last phase, and so when you have discount programs, rebates, you need to administer those. You need to work out what you can claim and what can be claimed off you. And very often that's very manual, lots of spreadsheets, lots of errors, lots of rework, and so it's very inefficient and unproductive. And so administration is about automating that as easily and simply as possible, automating calculations and making sure that you claim all you can and you only pay out what you should. And so FlintFox operates on that side of the pricing value chain. It's execution and administration. So it's a pricing technology firm that manages execution and administration of pricing. It's a very long answer to a very simple question.
Yes, it's a very complex product because our customers are very complex, and so we've designed it to meet their complexity where they are. Hey Andrew, when we first met you going back, I think it was in January this year, you talked about how you'd been keeping an eye on us folk over at FlintFox for the last 10 years, and it wasn't because you ran into John on the streets of Coventry when you were kids and you sort of watched him from afar. They both grew up in Coventry, and that's the connection there. But
great city.
Yes.
No, it's not.
What was the trigger that made you say, we need to bring pricing and rebates together and we need FlintFox?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one thing was it was becoming more and more clear that companies we were working with rebates were very important for them, but managing pricing was also important, and they were looking at kind of different solutions and buying Enable, but also buying a pricing solution as well and trying to integrate it together. And so we kind of saw the long-term vision of really allowing a company to have all of their commercial arrangements in one place on the buy side and the sell side, whether it be pricing or rebates and all the different types of commercial agreements. Someone had to bring all of that together, and we really wanted to be doing that. And I think also this is, we're all living in this quite kind of specialized world. I think, Kath, you talk about rebate nerds and pricing nerds, and
yes. Everyone here today,
exactly.
You're officially pricing and rebate nerds.
That's official. So when you look at kind of what's out there, there's actually, there's not that many companies that do this really, really well. And it didn't take long to really understand that FlintFox was the market leader. And to John's point, on things like speed of price execution, it was the fastest by a long, long way. So when we met the team, saw the kind of domain expertise the team had, we saw the product and the product capabilities, then it really was an easy decision to say that we wanted to bring the whole thing together. So I think we first heard about FlintFox, as you say, 10 years ago when we were losing to FlintFox on a competitive bid. So that was the start of the relationship, and then we I think John, you and I were talking for a good 2 years before we actually made this happen. So it took a while to make it happen, but it's been a fantastic milestone this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, talking about over the last 5 years of us working together at FlintFox, and like Andrew said, we came across Enable in many customer pursuits, a lot of them in APAC, and given all the Enable customers here today, they clearly won a few over FlintFox. That's cool, we're good with that now. When did you come to realise, kind of as we used to go through these sales cycles, and we used to think about, why are rebates and pricing treated separately inside of a business today? And so, Enable only had rebate management until they acquired FlintFox. But why do you believe that when you bring pricing and rebates together, it creates a better commercial outcome for a business?
Yeah, and so I managed to mistime my move to New Zealand. I did it during COVID rather than pre-COVID, and so my time with FlintFox is 5 years, and so I can't claim credit for that win over you 10 years ago. But certainly through that 5-year period, we came up against Enable quite a lot of times in various deals, and sometimes we'd lose because the customers focus primarily on rebates, and you have a great solution there, and sometimes we win because we had a pricing and rebate solution. And so I think the value chain helps explain why pricing and rebates really need to go together. And so if you think about the strategy component of the value chain right up front, if you're trying to optimize your pricing strategy to maximize either revenue or profit, you cannot do that by looking at how you create your list price alone, or by looking at your promotion strategy alone, or by your rebate strategy alone. You have to optimize the entire, all three components holistically. Otherwise, you will not optimize. It's simple. And so that's one aspect as to why I believe pricing rebates should go together. The second is around administration. And so we both understand that administration of rebates is very inefficient. There's a lot of lost productivity, a lot of errors, a lot of rework. And if you have a single piece of technology that covers both rebates and pricing, that calculation is far simpler than if you don't. And so having both on the same platform helps you optimize for the whole of your margin calculation, but also helps you then save the most on the administration piece.
Hey, Andrew, over to you. You know, we've just introduced this concept of Revenue 4.0, where pricing, rebates, and AI come together. And John's just talked about why pricing and rebates are better together, you know, from that sort of, I guess, strategic level and from that execution level. When you add AI on top of that and thinking about our AI-powered rebates product in itself, can you just kind of dive in and kind of give us, you know, where you think the AI is really going to, the rubber's going to hit the road to help people reimagine what Revenue 4.0 can look like in some
absolutely.
businesses?
Yeah, so I think systems generally, as we know them in any category, whether it's rebates or CRM or pricing or HR or in any category, will completely transform over the next few years. The way we think about it now is we kind of log onto our systems and we input data and we're navigating around and we run reports, but you know, we spend a lot of time in these systems basically inputting and updating them. And that will all change in the kind of next AI era, where agents will be running 24/7. They will be going and actually capturing the data for us. They'll be ingesting data. They'll be interpreting it, and we will be alerted when things come up, when events come up. That we might be alerted of an opportunity, for example, to renegotiate a contract, or alerted of an opportunity to make a purchase or a sale, and be able to increase our margin and whatever it might be. So the whole paradigm of how we use systems is going to change dramatically. And I think, to John's point, the Flintfox pricing capabilities and the speed of execution is huge, and something Enable didn't have at all. Enable has developed a lot on the collaboration side, so how this isn't just about installing a piece of software within your business, but having a platform where you can come together with your trading partners and collaborate together. And as I said a few times in my presentation, have that kind of seamless relationship between two partners for the benefit of your customers. So I think we're bringing that in as well. And I'm just really excited that by kind of, you know, as we enter this AI era with collaboration and with pricing and rebates, then we've got this opportunity to just completely reimagine how that works. And as far as we know, nobody else in this space is investing at this level in building that next generation platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the most challenging things about AI is it's overwhelming to understand where to start, and it's overwhelming to understand how it could help you and the different parts of your business and what you organize in. And so, you know, rebates is one example and pricing is just one example of how we can use AI for efficiency. But, you know, AI is typically about efficiency, right? Efficiency gains is what you get from it. But what we're talking about here is not just efficiency gain, but actually bottom line impact, right?
Yeah.
AI can have an impact.
And I think on that note, it's a great point, Kath. The vision really is to say that you can have all of your commercial agreements. So all of your pricing agreements, sale agreements, discount structures, rebates, every single commercial agreement that you have can be captured onto a single platform on the buy side and the sell side, and then the AI can actually tell you, here are the opportunities where you can, again, depending on your goal, you know, you can increase your market share, you can increase your margin, but also here's how you could improve an agreement. You know, here's how you can go back to your partner and look at how you could just improve and tweak and make the agreement much more effective and ideally mutually beneficial. Because for me, it's not a zero-sum game where we have an agreement and one side wins and one side loses. This is an opportunity to create agreements where both partners win together. And that, I think, is what an AI-enabled platform can do.
Yes, exactly. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. John, I'm going to now go back to, you mentioned it, the thing that we're really proud of at Flintfox is our performance pricing engine. And even though we are in a room full of pricing and rebate geeks, as I like to call you all, with a very tender place in my heart, what is a pricing engine and what does it actually do? Because this is the thing, as the marketer in the room, I tried to explain to everybody, but if you could kind of unleash the secret sauce of James's pricing engine for everybody.
So I'm sure James is going to critique my answer here, given that he's built this over the last 24 years. So one way to think about it is what's called a price waterfall. where at the top of the waterfall is the list price. So you set the price through some means and you have a list price. And then for any given set of attributes, so for a given customer, for a given product group or product or volume or geography, there may be a set, or time, there may be a set of discounts and promotions that apply. And so, and a given transaction may actually trigger more than one of those promotions or discounts. And so you have the list price, and then you have any number of discounts and promotions that come off that list price based on the attributes of the transaction you're looking at. And there may be additions around surcharges and delivery, etc. And you get down to a net price. And then below that in the waterfall, you have all of the various accruals and commissions that come off that based off some other attributes, and you get to a dead net price. And so for most of our customers, that price waterfall would probably consist of maybe 5 to a dozen levels. Some have 100 odd levels because they have very complex pricing rules. And every one of those levels is a rule. And so in the situation where you have a given transaction hitting multiple promotions, you need a rule to say, okay, if the transaction qualifies for 3 different trade promotions, which apply, do all apply? And if so, in what sequence? Or is it simply the biggest discount applies? Again, it's another rule. And so what the pricing engine is, it's a rules-based engine that, given a set of attributes, calculates the price in real time. And that can be a lot of calculations. And it is in real time because our customers, we have retailers as customers, and so at the checkout, when you scan a barcode, it has the details of the product clearly. It may have a loyalty card from a customer. It knows the location, it knows the store, it knows the channel. It'll calculate a price in real time. And nobody else does that. Everybody else has a set of stored prices at the checkout, and they look up the price based on the attributes, which means the price could be out of date. If they update prices by every week, then it could be out of date by a week, whereas all of ours are real time. That's how the pricing engine does, and it does that across every single channel. So through a trade portal, in store, through a web, direct to consumer, whatever it may be. And of course, it has to be fast. So you can't have a barcode scanned and you sort of stand there for a minute or two before the price comes up. It comes back in milliseconds. And so you have all these rules based on the attributes. And James has built an engine, and for 5 years now, I've quoted 5,000 prices calculated per second, per node. And so we just scale that up to whatever's required by the customer. And we know that's the fastest out there in the market. And then over dinner last night, James was telling me he's found a way to double the speed with 40% less memory usage. It's an in-memory pricing engine, which is why it's so fast. And so we're already ahead of the market, and we'll go even further ahead. And there are some examples, some use cases, and so there are very, very large IT distribution companies in the US that have lots of very large customers, and they may have 1 million, 10 million SKUs, and they want to create a price list per end retailer, ideally on a daily basis, but their current systems take more than a day to run the price list, and so they can't. And so this one in particular, they can do 10% of their customers, they can produce a price list on a weekly basis, another 30% on a monthly basis, and the rest are quarterly, whereas we can do it on a daily basis. And so speed matters in terms of pricing. When you get to be, we work best with fairly large and complex businesses with scale, and that's when you need a very, very fast pricing engine.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. 10,000 prices per second per node. Yeah. James's son is a go-kart racer, so James clearly has a need for speed across all parts of his life. Hey, Andrew, so quite excitingly, a very long-standing Enable customer, post the acquisition of FlintFox, they had a need for pricing, and so they are now the first combined Enable FlintFox customer that are doing the implementation. Can you just explain to everybody, because there's so many people here who sit on the Enable platform today, who probably have a very clear need for pricing as well. What was the problem that customer was trying to solve in bringing together pricing and rebates, and how are we working together to solve that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a really large, or is a really large, distributor of pharmaceutical products, and they came to Enable several years ago with initially rebates on the sell side, and they had a very old legacy system. They'd got rebates set up for many customers, but the people that had set those up had left the company and they didn't really know why they were paying them, but they knew if they stopped paying them, customers would notice and start asking questions. So that was the first project of how do we kind of really take control of all of that on the sell side with customer rebates. And then we expanded into the supplier rebates, so rebates on the buy side, and again went through different types of suppliers that they had and different types of rebates they had there. So that was great. And then they literally saw the announcement that John and I made about FlintFox and Enable coming together. And it was a CIO, a guy called Ranjit Gill, who approached me and said, "Oh, I've just seen this FlintFox announcement. Can we talk?" So we started the conversation. And they literally, alongside all those rebates, sure enough, had very complex pricing rules and many different price lists for many different customers that were constantly changing. And they were actually, I think they'd built something in Alteryx with one of the big consulting firms, which was kind of how they updated, it's how they set their prices, and then they would export into Excel, send that off to some people they had in some location, and then they would literally be manually updating the prices. And that would take time, and also it was very error prone. Often they would make some errors when they were updating tens of thousands of prices across hundreds of customers. So again, it was just a completely natural fit, and that's now in a very advanced stage of implementation. So that was just literally seeing the announcement and then starting a conversation, but it does show the synergy. And you're right, it's the same customers, the same industries, the same buyers that are looking at both pricing and rebates. So
Absolutely.
The first of many.
Goodbye spreadsheets, hello intelligent pricing. That's my tagline.
Absolutely.
Hey, John, back over to you. So we've experienced this over the past 5 years or so as we've been, marketing and trying to reach pricing people and rebate people. And what we've really seen is that, since volatility, you think about COVID, pre-COVID, the cost of toilet paper was pretty much the same across the globe, right? And then all of a sudden COVID hits and demand spikes and the world goes crazy for loo paper, and then there's supply chain issues. And so what was once a category that only grew because of population, all of a sudden, it was so unpredictable, and the pricing model became really unpredictable. And what we saw is that pricing professionals and the role that they play inside of an organization, they moved from being a back office function to having a seat at the boardroom. And so, John, what do you see in terms of the future of where we're heading around pricing and rebates? How these pricing professional or people in the room today, how their roles are going to change, and how they're going to be driving business success over the next decade?
Yeah, so I think that's the key thing, is that over the last 5 years, one of the consequences is the rise in prominence of pricing and rebate professionals. And so the decade prior, so after the financial crisis, so from 2010 to 2020, in most Western economies, inflation was between 2 and 5% and very stable for 10 years. And so price really didn't change much. It was CPI maybe and the plus.
Yeah.
And in many organisations, there were no pricing people. I worked in an organisation that didn't have a pricing person. It was just the finance team that just slapped 2 or 3% on every year, and that was it. It was very simple. As you said, volatility creates the need for good pricing and rebate professionals. And when COVID hit, supply chains hit, shipping costs went up, energy prices went up. If you could get inputs, prices changed very rapidly. And as Andrew said right at the start, if you couldn't then set your sales price rapidly enough, you were losing margin every time. If you had no visibility of what was going on, you were losing margin every time. I don't see that changing for quite some time. Like Andrew spoke about tariffs. There is just lots of volatility around. Mm-hmm. And so yes, we've come around inflation, interest rates going up and then down again, but the world right now is fairly volatile in many different places, and I just see the need for strong pricing and rebate professionals across the board. And so I think there's an era now where, as you say, they have a much bigger role in the organisations, and people actually value pricing and rebate experts. Like we've seen it, we've gone to pricing societies in Europe and the US and seen them grow over the last 5 years because more companies are employing people for pricing and rebates. Whereas in the past it was a part of marketing or a part of finance and there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. Now that very front part of the value chain around strategy and price setting is ever more important because of the volatility. And so I see good things for the next decade, and clearly a need to understand AI, because as there's more data around, the ability for AI to help in those decisions is going to be really critical.
Absolutely. And leaving pricing to the marketing department, Marketing maths is a thing, right? It's a real thing, marketing math. Yeah, all you shaking your heads, I know. I'm the person that gets judged with my marketing maths on a daily basis, especially with an ex-accountant as a boss. Now, just to round out our session today, John, if you had one piece of advice for the leaders in this room thinking about transforming their pricing and rebate capabilities, what would that be?
Yeah, so in terms of over the next period of time, I think there's two things. It's investment in pricing technology and investment in pricing professionals.
Yes.
Those are the two things I'd say. Like, I think you've seen already today the need for a single platform to cover pricing and rebates, and one that is very responsive to allow you to respond to whatever hits you in terms of volatility. And secondly, investing in really good people and with great training and development. Like we've spoken about the societies that I've seen and we've attended in Europe and the US, and that is a groundswell of learning and development that people should take advantage of. And it does include AI. There's lots of talk going on right now about AI and pricing in particular.
Absolutely. And Andrew, just to round it out with you, what is the one thing you'd like people to take away from our time together today here in Melbourne?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about examining the different commercial agreements you have with your suppliers and customers, because once again, I see these categories of, again, guys talk about necessary evil versus kind of like actual kind of growth opportunities. And I talked about how often these agreements are in place just because they've always been in place and they just keep going and no one really knows why they're there. So really re-examining those and saying, how can you turn those agreements that you have now into true joint business plans, with your suppliers, with your customers, that can actually move the needle. And I've seen that happen so many times, and it's a really kind of significant, hard dollar return on investment, and also not just dollars, it's also great for relationships because you can make the relationships work better. So that's the thing I would say. And can I have a second thing?
Of course.
Which is just, we've got this huge opportunity ahead now because we've got, I'm very privileged to have a very talented team in Auckland, in Sydney, Melbourne, and also across the US and the UK. We've got really good engineers, we've got some good products, but what we're now doing is putting all that together, again, adding or kind of making it AI first, and bringing that together, AI, collaboration, rebates and pricing. So the big thing we need is input from all of you in terms of what is most important, what your priorities are. We don't want to be building in a vacuum, and we do have great kind of industry knowledge and technology knowledge around pricing and rebates and how to make it work fast and so on, but we do need kind of customer input on what's most important for you. So when we send a survey later, I'm putting you on the spot now, Kath, but
yeah, sure.
I want to add a question and I've had some conversations already in the room, and I know some of you have already kind of put your names forward, but we'd love to work with you to understand, what's most important for you, and we will invest in building those things in that kind of priority sequence.
Nice. The capabilities that you guys need to take you on the Revenue 4.0 journey inside your organisations. And that's great.
Well said.
Yes. Well, thank you guys. That was a great session. John, James and myself are around from the Flint Fox crew. So if you have any questions about the product, I'll give you the marketing version and these guys will give you the real version of the conversation. But thanks for a great session. And look, with all that talk of AI, I am now going to introduce our next speaker while we sort of stand up and they shimmy the chairs off and we do this sort of awkward dance that we do. But give the guys a round of applause. Thank you so much.